The silence of space near Vexorus Prime was absolute empty, cold, and perfectly ordered. For 10,000 years, the Galactic Concord had ruled this region without serious challenge. Their fleets patrolled the lanes between stars. Their laws governed trade, travel, and even thought. Peace was not just maintained, it was enforced. And it had worked. No war had touched the inner systems in centuries. Then, without warning, without signal, without even a ripple in the quantum foam of subspace, a ship appeared. It did not emerge from a jump gate. It did not tear through a warp bubble. One moment, the void was empty. The next, a single vessel hung in the black, silent and dark. From the observation decks of Vexorus Prime's orbital command hub, officers froze. Alarms did not sound because there had been no energy spike, no distortion, no approach. The ship simply was done. It was ugly by galactic standards. No sleek curves, no glowing engine rings, no shimmering energy shields. Its hull was rough, patched in places, made of thick metal plates bolted together like ancient armor. It looked less like a starship and more like a floating fortress from a forgotten age. Its shape reminded old historians of primitive naval warships from pre-space civilizations long, blocky, with rows of what appeared to be gun barrels along its sides. Concord sensors scanned it instantly. Composition: steel, titanium, carbon composites. Propulsion: chemical thrusters and crude magnetic coils, barely capable of sustained sublight travel. Power source: fission reactors, possibly fusion, but nothing approaching the zero-point cores used by even the lowest-tier Concord members. Armor: no energy shielding. Weapons: unclassified, but likely kinetic or explosive. It was a relic. A museum piece. A joke, yet it hung there, unmoving, in restricted space, just outside the 10,000-kilometer safety perimeter around the galactic capital. High Command debated. Was it a derelict? A trap? A prank by one of the younger species? Someone suggested it might be a training drone gone rogue. Others whispered it could be a ghost ship, one of the silent wrecks from the Great Silence era, when entire civilizations vanished overnight. But then, after 27 minutes of total silence, the ship spoke. A transmission crackled across all open channels, raw, unencrypted, and in a language not heard in millennia. Linguistic A's scrambled to decode it. The words were rough, accented, and oddly structured, but clear enough. This is the Terran Union ship UNS Resolute. Identify yourselves. State your intentions toward Earth. The name meant nothing to most. But deep in the Concord archives, a dormant file flickered to life. Terran Union, Sol System. Species designation: Homo sapiens. Status: extinct. Last confirmed signal: 11,842 standard cycles ago. Humans? Impossible. They were myth, folklore, a cautionary tale told to young diplomats about the dangers of early spaceflight and unchecked ambition. They had never even achieved true FTL before vanishing. Yet here was their ship, alone, in the heart of galactic power, Concord High Command. Led by Fleet Admiral Zorvik of the Krell Dominion, decided on caution. Not fear, never fear, but caution. Protocol dictated first contact with unknown vessels, even primitive ones. A diplomatic cruiser, the Light of Accord, was dispatched. It was small, unarmed, except for defensive drones, and flew under full peace banners, rippling holographic flags of neutrality. The Light of Accord approached slowly, broadcasting greetings in over 200 languages, including the reconstructed form of Terran Standard, pulled from ancient data cores. No reply came from the Resolute. Its lights remained dim. No hatches opened. No life signs were detected, though the Concord's bioscanners were calibrated for known species. Not mythological ones. Then, without warning, 3 long barrels on the Resolute's bow rotated slowly, locking onto the approaching cruiser. Alarms finally blared on the light of Accord's bridge. "Shields at full," the captain shouted, but it was too late. From the Resolute, a single projectile launched. It was not energy, not plasma, not even a missile. It was a solid rod, dense, dark, and no bigger than a transport pod. But it shot forward with impossible speed. Trailing only a thin ion wake dot, it struck the light of Accord's forward shield. The shield, capable of absorbing antimatter bursts and neutron beams, flared bright blue for a fraction of a second, then shattered like glass. The rod punched through the hull, tore through 3 decks, and detonated inside the ship's core with the force of a small sun. The light of Accord vanished in a silent flash of white fire. Back on Vexorus Prime, silence turned to chaos. "Impossible," breathed Zorvik, staring at the replay. "That was a kinetic weapon? At relativistic speeds?" Analysis confirmed it. A tungsten-depleted uranium slug accelerated to 30% of light speed. The energy release rivaled that of a fusion warhead. But the method, simple, brutal, mechanical, was unlike anything in modern warfare. The Concorde relied on precision energy weapons, guided drones, and AI-controlled tactics. They hadn't fired a physical bullet in over 8,000 years. This ship didn't just ignore galactic norms. It seemed unaware they existed. Within the hour, emergency councils convened. The Senate demanded answers. The fleet wanted vengeance. The historians warned of legend made real. And deep inside the Resolute, Captain Elias Vance stood on the command deck, watching the distant flash of the cruiser's death. He was tall, lean, with tired eyes and a jaw set like stone. Around him, a crew of 47 men and women in worn uniforms marked with faded insignias worked at consoles that sparked occasionally, patched with tape and hope. They had woken from cryostasis only 3 days ago. Their last memory was Earth green, blue, alive, sending them on a desperate test flight beyond Pluto. Something went wrong. A flash, darkness. Then, this dot space was filled with strange ships, languages they couldn't understand. And Earth was gone, erased from the star maps. Now, they were alone, surrounded, and they had just killed someone. "We didn't fire first," Vance said quietly. "Not to anyone in particular." "No, sir," replied Lieutenant Mara Chun, her fingers flying over a cracked screen. "But they're gonna think we did." Outside, new blips appeared on the long-range scanner. Dozens of them, growing by the second. "They're coming," she added. Vance didn't flinch. He looked at the main viewer, at the glittering city planet of Vexorus Prime, its orbital rings gleaming with arrogant peace. "Let them come," he said. "We're not running." He turned to his crew, their faces lit by the glow of dying consoles and human stubbornness. "We don't know what happened to Earth, but if they think we're just ghosts, then we'll haunt them." The Resolute powered up its engines. Not to flee, to fight. And across the galaxy, for the first time in 10,000 years, something ancient stirred, something the Concorde had forgotten, something they never understood. Humanity wasn't extinct. It was just getting started. Panic spread through the Galactic Concorde like fire through dry grass. The destruction of the Light of Accord, a ship carrying diplomats, not soldiers, was not just an attack. It was an insult, a challenge. And worst of all, it made no sense. Fleet Admiral Zorvik sat in the War Council chamber, his scaled hands gripping the edge of the obsidian table. Around him, leaders from 20 species argued in sharp, hissing tones. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others whispered fear of the unknown, of something that did not follow the rules. "They used a bullet," said a Veln diplomat, voice trembling. "A metal rod." like children throwing stones. But that stone moved faster than our scouts, another replied. It ignored our shields as if they were mist. Zorvik stood. His deep voice silenced the room. This is not some lost tribe. This is a warship. Alone, yes, but dangerous. And it claims to be human. Murmurs rose again. Human? The species erased from history? The ones who vanished during the Great Silence? Many thought them a myth, a cautionary tale about species who reached for the stars before they were ready. Yet, here was proof. One ship, one impossible ship. Send Task Force Kale, Zorik ordered. 50 vessels. Full combat load. No diplomacy. No warnings. If it moves, destroy it. Across the orbital docks, warships powered up. Sleek, silent, glowing with blue and violet energy. Shields hummed to life. AI. Targeting systems locked onto every point of space where the Resolute might flee. The Concorde believed in overwhelming force. In certainty. In control. They did not believe in ghost stop. Meanwhile, aboard the Resolute, Captain Elias Vance studied the scanner readouts. 50 enemy signatures. Closing fast. Weapons hot. And not playing nice anymore, said Lieutenant Chun, chewing on a protein bar that tasted like chalk. This is a kill squad. Vance nodded. He had expected this. From the moment they fired that first shot, there was no turning back. But he also knew something the Concorde did not. Humans had spent centuries fighting wars with less. Bring up the railgun loadouts, he said. Prep the nukes. And seal all non-essential decks. The crew moved fast. No panic, just focus. They had trained for deep space combat, even if their tech was old. Even if their ship groaned like an old man climbing stairs. Outside, the Concorde fleet formed a perfect ring around the Resolute. Their formation was textbook designed to trap, disable, and study. They expected the human ship to surrender, or at least try to run. Instead, the Resolute turned its bow directly toward the largest enemy vessel, a command cruiser named Sovereign. Will and fired its main thrusters. It charged. The Concorde commanders were stunned. No sane ship would rush 50 warships alone. It was suicide. But Vance wasn't being sane. He was being smart. Target their command ship, he said. They rely on central control. Break the head, and the body flails. The Resolute's railguns roared. Not one slug this time, but 3. Each accelerated to near-light speed, aimed not at the ship, but at the space just ahead of it. Why? Because the Concorde ships use predictive AI to dodge attacks. But they couldn't dodge what hadn't been fired yet. As the slugs flew, the Resolute launched a cluster of old-style decoy drones, small, hot, and noisy. The Concorde sensors locked onto them instantly, diverting shield power to intercept. That was the trap. The real slugs, cold, dark, and nearly invisible, slammed into the Sovereign Will side before its AI could react. The first punched through the engine array. The second blew out the bridge. The third detonated inside the core. The command ship exploded in a chain reaction of blue fire. Chaos erupted in the Concorde fleet. Without central orders, their AI coordination faltered. Ships bumped into each other. Drone swarms froze mid-flight. Some even fired on allies by mistake. Now the Resolute struck hard. Nuclear-tipped missiles, launched from hidden launch tubes along its hull, streaked out. Old-fashioned, yes, but packed with enough yield to crack planetary crusts. The Concorde shields could handle energy beams, but they struggled against raw, messy explosions. The nukes didn't need to hit perfectly. They just needed to get close. One blast crippled a scout frigate. Another blinded a sensor drone. A third sent a heavy cruiser spinning out of formation, its crew screaming in alien tongues. The Resolute took hits too. Plasma fire scorched its port side. A drone swarm chewed through its rear antenna array. But its thick hull held. And its crew kept firing. "They don't understand," Chan shouted over the alarms. "They think war is clean. Ours is dirty. Ours is loud." Vance grinned. It was grim but real. Keep giving them lessons. For 3 hours, the battle raged. The Resolute danced through the enemy lines like a boxer weaving through punches. It used asteroids for cover. It dumped fuel to create smoke screens. It even played dead once shutting all power, drifting silently while a Concorde destroyer passed right over it. Then it fired point blank into the ship's belly. By the time the Concorde realized they were losing, it was too late. 22 of their ships were destroyed. 30 more damaged beyond repair. The rest broke formation and fled. The Resolute floated in the wreckage, battered but alive. Smoke curled from 3 hull breaches. Half its weapons were offline. But its flag, a simple blue field with white stars, still flew from a bent mast on the rear deck. Back on Vexorus Prime, Zorvok watched the battle footage in silence. His pride was shattered. His confidence cracked. "This is not a relic," he said at last. "This is a wolf in steel armor." He activated the highest level emergency protocol. "Declare total war, all fleets, all sectors. Find that ship. Find its origin, and erase it along with any memory of its kind." But far from the capital, the Resolute drifted toward the edge of the system. There, in a quiet pocket of space, Vance played a recording recovered from the Concorde's open data net. It was a historical archive. Grainy old, but clear enough. Images of Earth, blue oceans, green forests, cities glowing at night. Then fire. From orbit, silent beams of energy turning continents to glass. Billions gone in minutes. The final words of the recording. "The silencers have come. They say we were too loud, too bold, too human. Tell the stars. We tried." Vance shut it off. His hand shook. Earth was gone. Not by accident. Not by time. By murder. And the Galactic Concorde, the peacekeepers of the galaxy, had allowed it. Or worse, they had helped. "They think we're some lost tribe," Vance said to his crew. "But we're the last witnesses. The last voices." He turned to the helm. "Set course for Sol, maximum stealth. We're going home." The crew nodded. No one spoke, but their eyes burned with something the Concorde had never seen. Grief sharpened into purpose. As the Resolute jumped to its next waypoint, using a jury-rigged warp coil that screamed like a dying beast. Its message spread, not by official channels, not by government, but through whispers in cargo holds, through hacked data streams, through rebel comms on backwater worlds. The humans are back, on a world of enslaved miners. A worker dropped his tool and looked up at the stars. In a hidden rebel base. A young alien pilot smiled for the first time in years, and in the deep dark, far beyond Concorde watchtowers, something ancient stirred, not in fear, but in warning, because the Concorde had just made a terrible mistake. They had not just found a ship. They had woken a species that never knew how to stay dead. The Resolute limped through the outer dark, far from the eyes of the Concorde fleet. Its hull groaned with every engine pulse. 3 decks were sealed off due to radiation leaks. Food stores were low. Water recyclers coughed like old men. But it moved. And that was enough. Captain Elias Vance stood alone on the observation deck, staring at a star map glowing softly on a cracked screen. Sol System was still weeks away, even at top speed. But time was not their friend. The Concorde had declared total war. Every patrol, every scout drone, every listening post now hunted them. "They think we're just one ship," he murmured. Behind him, Lieutenant Chen entered quietly. "They're wrong," she said. "But they don't know it yet." She handed him a data chip. "We cracked more of their archives. Found something strange." Vance plugged it in. New files appeared, classified logs from Concord border patrols. In them, small rebel groups had begun using human symbols, a circle with a line through it, the old peace sign, or rough sketches of Earth's continents. Some fighters now called themselves Ghost Wolves, after rumors of the Resolute's impossible survival. "They're inspired by us," Chum said, "even though we've done nothing but run and fight." "Maybe that's enough," Vance replied. "Maybe hope doesn't need speeches. Maybe it just needs proof that someone dared to say no." He turned back to the stars. "We keep going. To Earth, to the truth." But the Concorde had other plans. 50 light years away, the Grand Armada assembled. Not just 50 ships this time, but 500. Then 1,000. Warships from every major Concorde species. Dreadnoughts the size of small moons. Drone hives that could spawn millions of fighters. And at its heart, the Eye of Order, the flagship of Admiral Zorvik himself, a vessel said to have never lost a battle. Zorvik no longer saw the Resolute as a threat. He saw it as a disease. A memory that should have died. And diseases must be burned out. "They call themselves human," he told his war council. "They speak of Earth like it was sacred. Then let them return to ashes. We will meet them at Seoul, and when their ship falls, we will salt the ruins so nothing grows there again." The Armada moved out, silent, relentless, a tide of steel and light. Meanwhile, the Resolute entered the ruins of the Sol system, thought it was worse than the archive showed. Mars was a cratered tomb. Venus boiled under acid clouds. Jupiter's moons were hollowed out by mining. And Earth was a blackened husk. No oceans, no green. Just cracked plains of glass and dust storms that howled through dead cities. The planet gave off faint radiation, enough to kill an unprotected human in hours. The crew stood in silence on the bridge, watching the horror unfold on screen. "That was home," whispered Ensign Rowe, the youngest on board. His voice cracked. Vance didn't answer. He ordered a scan of lunar orbit. According to the files, something was hidden there, beneath the old sea of tranquility. Using the last of their stealth power, the Resolute crept toward the moon. There, buried under meters of regolith, was a structure human-made, ancient. Sealed tight, they sent a drone. It drilled through the rock, found a vault. Inside, a single data core, powered by a slow-decay battery that had lasted 12,000 years. Back on the ship, they plugged it in. A voice played calm, sad, but strong. "If you are hearing this, you are one of us. Or you carry our memory. My name is Dr. Lena Cho. I was part of Project Exodus, the last hope of Earth. We knew the silencers were coming. They'd punish species who disturb the balance, who reach for stars, who ask too many questions, who love too loudly." Images flashed. Humans building starships. Children laughing. Cities full of light. The Concorde didn't stop them. They bowed. They said, "Better one species lost than all of us." So they let Earth burn. And they erased us from history, so no one would ask why. The recording continued. The silencers were not a species. They were a system of cosmic law enforced by ancient machines and older minds. The Concorde served them, knowingly or not, by keeping the galaxy quiet, obedient, small. But humanity was never small, Dr. Cho said. We were messy, loud, and we refused to be silent. If you're out there, don't hide. Don't obey. Be human, even if it costs you everything. The screen went dark. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Vance stood. His eyes were dry, but his voice shook. We're not just going home to mourn. We're going to tell the galaxy what really happened. But they had little time. Chun's voice cut in, sharp with alarm. Captain! Massive energy surge inbound. Concorde signatures, hundreds of them. They followed us. Vance rushed to the bridge. The scanner showed it clearly. The Grand Armada had arrived. They'd tracked the Resolute's warp trail. Now, they surrounded Sol System like a noose. Zorvak's voice boomed across open comms translated. Cold, final, Terran vessel. You stand on dead ground. Your species is forgotten. Surrender now, and your crew will be spared as historical specimens. Resist, and you will be unmade. Molecule by molecule. Vance looked at his crew. Tired, scarred, but standing tall. Patch me in, he said. The comms clicked. This is Captain Elias Vance of the Terran Union ship Ons Resolute, he said. Voice steady. You say we're forgotten. But remember this. We remember Earth. We remember what you let happen. And we will not be specimens. We will be witnesses. He cut the channel. Then he gave the order. All hands. Battle stations. We're not running. We're fighting. For Earth. For everyone they've silenced. The Resolute turned, not toward escape, but toward the heart of the Armada. Its engines flared. Its railguns cycled. Its last nuclear warheads armed from the Concorde ships. Confusion spread. Why charge now? There was no cover. No allies. No hope. But humans had never needed hope to fight. They only needed a reason. As the first plasma bolts streaked toward them, the Resolute fired its main railgun, not at ships, but at the ice rings of Saturn. The impact shattered millions of tons of ice into a glittering cloud. Then it dove into the debris. The Concorde sensors lost it instantly. Too much noise. Too many reflections. Inside the chaos, the Resolute became a ghost again. It struck fast. A drone hive, blinded by ice, took 3 nukes to its core and exploded. A cruiser turning to flee got a railgun slug through its engine. A command frigate never saw the boarding pod latch onto its hull until human Marines, armed with mag-locked rifles and old-fashioned grenades, blew through its bridge. The Armada, built for perfect order, collapsed in confusion. Ships fired on shadows. AI pilots froze when faced with unpredictable moves. Zorvak screamed orders, but his fleet was too big, too slow to adapt. For 6 brutal hours, the Resolute danced through the storm of war, a single spark in a sea of darkness. It lost its starboard engine. Its medical bay was vented to space. 12 crew members were dead, but the Armada lost. 37 ships. And worse for the Concorde, the truth was. Spreading. Rebel cells across the galaxy intercepted the Resolute's final broadcast from Sol. They heard Dr. Cho's message. They saw footage of Earth's glassed surface. They learned the Concorde had allowed genocide to keep the peace. On a dozen worlds, riots began. On 100 more, soldiers refused orders. The Grand Armada wasn't just losing a battle. It was losing its grip on the galaxy. And it all started with one ship that refused to die. The Resolute drifted in the cold shadow of Jupiter, its hull scarred, its crew exhausted. They had survived the Grand Armada's first wave, but barely. 12 good people were gone. The ship's oxygen recyclers wheezed like dying animals. And the Concorde fleet still blockaded the Sol System, now tighter than ever. But something had changed. Captain Elias Vance sat in the dimmed command room, listening to intercepted comms. Not just military chatter, civilian channels, rebel networks, even whispers from Concorde-loyal worlds. Everywhere, the same words kept appearing. Earth, truth, human. The broadcast from Sol had spread like wildfire. Footage of the glassed planet. Dr. Cho's message. The Resolute's defiant stand. It wasn't just data, it was a spark, On the mining world of Kethra, slave workers tore down Concord Overseer's statue and raised a makeshift flag made of old fabric and Starlight One blue circle, white stars around it. On the academic moon of Varelis, students hacked the public network and played Earth's final message on every screen for 3 hours before being arrested. Even within the Concord military, reports came in of soldiers questioning orders, of pilots refusing to hunt ghosts. The Concord called it madness, but Vance called it something else. Memory waking up. They're starting to remember, Lieutenant Chun said, handing him a cup of weak coffee made from recycled beans. Not just Earth, but what it means to choose. Vance nodded. He looked at the star chart. The Armada still held the system, but their grip was slipping, and he knew why. The Concord had ruled through fear of chaos, but humans had always lived in chaos and built beauty from it. We can't win a straight fight, Vance said. Not with one ship. But we don't need to win. We just need to be seen. He turned to the crew. We're going back out there. Not to attack. To broadcast. They patched the ship as best they could. Welded hull plates with spare metal. Rerouted power from non-essential systems. Loaded every last data chip with Dr. Cho's archive, Earth's history, and footage of the Resolute's battles. Then they aimed for the edge of the system, toward the main data relay station, the Concord. Used to control Galactic News. It was suicide. The station was guarded by 3 heavy cruisers and a drone swarm, but the Resolute didn't attack. It sent a simple, open signal. We only want to speak. For 10 minutes, silence. Then, shockingly, one of the cruisers moved aside. A voice crackled over Cum's humanoid, but not human. This is Captain Rel of the Dawn's Echo, it said. We heard your message. About Earth. My people were once silenced too. We will not stop you. The other 2 cruisers held their fire. No one moved. With trembling hands, Chun uploaded the full archive into the relay. Within seconds, it blasted across the entire galaxy, uncensored, unfiltered, unstoppable. On Vexorus Prime, Admiral Zorvak watched in horror as his control over the narrative shattered. The Senate erupted. Species that had obeyed for millennia now demanded answers. Why was Earth destroyed? Who are the silencers? Is the Concord protecting murderers? The truth was out. And truth, once freed, could not be caged again. Back near Jupiter, the Resolute prepared to retreat. But then alarms blared. New contact. Chun shouted. Massive energy signature. Coming from deep space. Not Concord. Not Rebel. Something else. On the main screen, space twisted. Not a warp jump. Not a gate. A tear-silent black edged with violet light. From it emerged a ship unlike any other. Smooth, black, featureless. No engines. No weapons. Just presence. Every sensor went wild. Then died. The crew froze. That's not Concord tech, Chun whispered. That's older. The strange ship broadcast no message. It only hovered, watching. Then, slowly, it turned toward Earth. And fired. Not with weapons. With light. A single beam, thin as a thread, struck the dead planet's surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, deep beneath the glassed crust, a pulse. Faint, but alive. Energy reading, cried Ensign Rowe. Something's waking up. Under the ruins. Vance's blood ran cold. The silencers. The black ship hadn't come to fight. It had come to check if Earth's memory was truly gone. And now, because of the Resolute's broadcast, because people were speaking Earth's name again. The planet had answered. There was a crime in the eyes of the silencers. The black ship turned its attention to the Resolute. No warning. No words. Just judgment. It unleashed a wave of distortion. Not energy, but something deeper. Reality itself seemed to bend. The Resolute system screamed. Metal groaned. Lights flickered and died. Shields are useless. Chun yelled. It's not attacking the ship, it's attacking existence. Vance made a choice. Full power to engines. Get us between that thing and Earth. The Resolute lunged forward, placing its broken body between the black ship and the only home it had ever known. The distortion wave hit. Half the ship vanished, not exploded, but erased as if it had never been. The crew screamed as consoles turned to dust in their hands. But the core held. Barely then, from the relay station, new signals flooded in. Captain! Rao shouted. It's the rebels! The defectors! They're coming! On the scanner, hundreds of blips appeared, ships of all shapes and sizes. Former slave transports. Smuggler freighters. Even Concord patrol boats with their loyalty codes overwritten. They formed a ragged line between the Resolute and the black ship. We stand with you, came a voice roll again. If Earth is remembered, then we all have a chance. The black ship paused. It had not expected resistance. It had only known obedience. For the first time in eons, something defied the silencers, not with weapons, but with memory. The black ship retreated, fading back into the tier it came from. But its message was clear. This was not over. In the quiet that followed, the rebel fleet gathered around the Resolute. No one fired. No one gave orders. They just stayed. Vance opened a channel. Thank you, he said, voice rough. You didn't have to do this. We did, Rel replied, because you reminded us we could. Later, as the fleet shared power, supplies, and stories, Chun found Vance staring at Earth again. We can't bring it back, she said softly. No, he said. But we can make sure it's never forgotten again. Across the galaxy, the Concord's authority crumbled. Planets declared independence. Fleets broke apart. The Senate fell into chaos. And in the ruins of Sol, something new began, not a government, not an empire, but a promise. A promise to remember. A promise to speak. A promise to be human even if you weren't one. The war wasn't over, but the galaxy had changed, and it all started with one ship that dared to return home. The final battle did not begin with a declaration. It began with silence. Above the rebel-held world of Kethra, the last free system not yet crushed by the Concord, the sky darkened. Not with clouds, but with ships. Thousands of them. The full might of the Concord Armada, gathered for one purpose, to erase the Resolute, erase the rebels, and erase the memory of Earth once and for all. At the heart of the fleet floated the Eye of Order. Admiral Zorvak's command ship, a monstrous sphere of black alloy and pulsing energy, said to carry the voice of the silencers themselves. Zorvak had stopped believing this war was about discipline. Now, it was personal. The humans had made fools of his fleet. They had cracked the Concord's perfect peace. And for that, they would be unmade. On the surface of Kethra, refugees huddled in underground shelters. Former slaves, scholars, pilots, and children, all watching the sky through cracked screens. They had no real army, no grand fleet. Just a collection of patched-together ships, stolen fighters, and hope. And one old warship. The Un's Resolute hung at the front of the rebel line. It had no shields, no stealth. Half its weapons were gone, but its flag still flew, and its crew still stood. Captain Elias Vance looked at his people. They were tired. Many bore fresh scars. Some had lost friends, family, everything. But their eyes were clear. They knew what this day meant. This isn't just about us, Vance said over the shipwide comm. It's about every voice they tried to silence. Every world they told to be quiet. Today, we speak for them. He turned to Lieutenant Chun. Ready the artifact. Buried in the ship's core was the silencer device they'd recovered from Earth's ruins. A small, dark sphere humming with impossible energy. Dr. Cho's logs called it a reality anchor. The rebels believed it could tear open space itself. They didn't plan to win the battle. Planned to end the war. Outside, the Concorde Armada began its final advance. Energy beams lanced out. Drone swarms blackened the sky. The rebel fleet fired back with everything they had: lasers, missiles, railgun slugs, even old-fashioned bombs. Explosions lit the void like dying stars. The Resolute charged. It weaved through fire, taking hit after hit. Its hull cracked open in 3 places. Fires burned in the engine room, but it kept going straight for the Eye of Order. Zorvak watched it come. He almost laughed. One broken ship against his fortress. Let it come, he ordered. Crush it slowly. Let the rebels watch their symbol die. But Vance wasn't aiming for the ship. He was aiming for the space just ahead of it. Now, he shouted. Chun slammed her hand on the final switch. The silencer artifact activated. Space itself screamed. A black point bloomed in front of the Resolute. Not a hole, but a wound. Gravity twisted. Light bent backward. The very laws of physics frayed at the edges. The micro-black hole, small, unstable, but hungry, opened wide. The Concorde fleet, so perfectly ordered, so confident in its control, had no defense against chaos. Ships near the rift were torn apart. Not by weapons, but by reality unraveling. The Eye of Order's shields flickered and failed. Its engines reversed too late. It began to drift toward the void. Zorvak's voice crackled over open comms, no longer calm, but raw with fear. What is this? Vance answered, voice steady. This is what happens when you forget that the universe doesn't obey your rules. The Resolute didn't escape. It stayed, pouring its last power into the artifact, holding the rift open just long enough. One by one, Concorde ships were pulled in, dreadnoughts, carriers, command vessels, all vanishing into nothing. But the strain was too much. Alarms shrieked. The deck buckled. Oxygen hissed into space. It's over, Chun said, gripping her seat as the ship shook apart. We did it. Vance looked at the main screen. The Armada was broken. The Eye of Order was gone. The rebels were already moving in to finish what was left. He smiled. Then he opened the final broadcast wideband. Galaxy-wide, untraceable. This is Captain Elias Vance of the Terran Union ship UN's Resolute, he said, as metal groaned around him. We were never the galaxy's children. We were its conscience. The Concorde told you to be quiet. The silencers told you to be small. But you don't have to be. He paused. Smoke filled the bridge. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Remember Earth, not because it was perfect, but because it tried. Because it dreamed. Because it loved even when it knew it might lose. His voice grew softer. We're not asking you to fight forever. Just, don't forget, speak, create. Defend the voice that says no. When the powerful say obey. The ship shuddered violently. Tell our story, he whispered. And tell it loud. Then the Resolute broke in half. Its front section, with Vance and most of the crew, was pulled into the collapsing rift. The rear section exploded in a flash of blue and orange beautiful. Brief and final. Silence returned to the battlefield. But not for long. From the rebel fleet, a single ship moved forward. Then another. Then hundreds. They formed a circle around the place where the Resolute had been. No words, just presence. On Kethra, people stepped out of their shelters. They looked up. Some cried. Some stood tall. A child picked up a piece of scrap metal and drew a circle with stars on the ground. Across the galaxy, The news spread faster than light. The Concorde Armada was shattered. Admiral Zorvik was gone. The Resolute was gone, but the idea it carried was not. Within weeks, the Concorde collapsed. Planets declared independence. Old enemies became allies. And from the ashes rose a new union not ruled by one species, but guided by a promise. They called it the Terran Remembrance Pact. Its first law was simple. No voice shall be silenced. Its symbol was a blue circle with white stars. And every year, on the day the Resolute fell, every world in the pact went silent for 1 minute. Not out of fear, but out of respect. Then, they spoke, telling stories of Earth, of courage, of one ship that stood alone and changed everything. Far away, in the ruins of Sol, a single flower pushed through the glass soil of Earth. It was small, pale, but it lived. And in the stars above, if you listen closely, you can almost hear the echo of a human voice, quiet, but unbroken. We're not running. We're not forgotten. We're still here.